All right. Well, good afternoon, my friends. Welcome to our schedule management tech camp for today. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the 6 processes of scheduling. That is going to be quite a lot of fun. So we're going to take a look at plan schedule management, define activities, sequence the activities, estimate activity durations, develop the schedule, and control the schedule. But before I jump into that, why don't you tell me how your schedule actually went today? Or is it still going? Still going? Is anybody driving? Or is everyone stationary? I'm hoping you're stationary because this requires quite a lot of attention. Very good, Willanda. I'm glad to hear that. Let's see who else is on. Which of our friends? Katie, good to have you. Donna, Greg, Jason. I saw Jason hop on first of all. Welcome, Jason. Krishnan, good to have you. Maribel, thank you for joining today. Willanda and my buddy, Charles. Well, I'm delighted to have all of you here today, and I hope your day has gone well. I hope you've had a good Tuesday. If you survived Monday, then Tuesday is usually not as crazy, usually. I guess it depends on your projects. Like a previous company I was in, Tuesday was the day that management would grill us on earned value. That's tomorrow. Well, let's talk about schedule. Okay, so how many of you guys use a scheduling tool like the one I'm showing right now? This is Microsoft Project. And I typically like starting off with Microsoft Project because it's very easy to illustrate the PMBOK guide. Now, while some people say it's not easy to use, at least it's easy to illustrate the PMBOK guide. So I'm going to use this to illustrate your 6 processes, okay? So, my friends, the very first process is actually called plan schedule management. Plan schedule management. And that is where you decide what your schedule will look like, how you're going to develop your schedule, how accurate does your schedule need to look, and many other foundational ideas regarding scheduling. Which processes are you just absolutely going to bypass? Some people bypass certain scheduling processes. Some people don't do very much sequence activities. They just list them all out and they throw dates in, but they don't really sequence them. They don't put them in the logical order. I know quite a number of organizations that just come out with a Gantt chart that shows the duration of all of the tasks, but it doesn't list them in order, or it doesn't show how they are linked to each other. So in plan schedule management, you need to decide how far are we going to go? Are we going to go all out to do all 6? Or are we just going to do 2 or 3? Or are we just going to jump everything and hit develop schedule and out comes the magical schedule? You see? So the first task, like I said, is plan schedule management. Then the second one is define activities. So examples of defining activities will be creating a list. Like what you see on the screen here, your activity list where you have task name, this column, that will be sequencing your activities. So let me put in a number of activities here. Let's put in chapter 1 of the PMBOK guide. So your activities are typically action-driven language, like read chapter 1, test chapter 1, read chapter 2, test chapter 2, so on and so forth. So let me go up to 4 to illustrate a few things. Read, or actually just copy. So that's the good thing about it. You can just copy and paste and change whatever you want to. So what I'm doing right now is defining the activities. Now, it so happens that the chapters are in order, but define activities does not have to be in order. You just think about what you need to do, you list it out. Now, define activities is done by taking your work package, your work packages, and breaking those down into smaller, more manageable pieces known as tasks. So I know you're going to get to the lowest level of the WBS. That's the end of the WBS, but the party continues in defined activities. You're going to take your work packages and you're going to be breaking them down. That's really what you're supposed to be thinking about. All right, so that is define activities. Now, sequence activities will be putting these in the order that they need to occur. So if I want task 2 to happen after task 1, the predecessor of task 2 is 1. The predecessor of 3 is 2. The predecessor of 4 is 3. And if you take a look on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see how these tasks are being joined. It's very small, but if you look really, really carefully, you can see how, it's developing bit by bit. So 4 is the predecessor of 5. 5 is the predecessor of 6, so on and so forth. See that? 6 is the predecessor of 7. 7 is the predecessor of 8. And that's how you need to think in sequence activities. But we could also get a little bit creative, because we have got finish to start relationships for the most part here. This is all finish to start, finish to start. But if we wanted to link task 1 and 2 with a start to start relationship, it would be 1 start to start. So this is starting at the same time as the other one. Bear in mind, we're not talking about anything to do with duration just yet. We're just trying to establish the sequence of our activities. You see, then let's say we wanted 3 and task 4 and task 5 to have a relationship like a finish to finish. We could say, okay, join chapter 3 to chapter 2 with a finish to finish. And we'll just put FF. It doesn't matter whether it's caps or not, but you can see it's now created a finish to finish relationship between them. So we've looked at 3 relationships so far: start to start, finish to start, and finish to finish. What is the relationship that we have not taken a look at just yet? Anyone? Which relationship is not represented here? Anyone know? It is start to finish. So we've been taking a look at finish to start for the most part. So just to illustrate for you so you know, finish to start is, excuse my horrible boxes here, but finish to start is I finish and then I start. That is the most commonly used one. So I know you don't see FS here. That's because in MS Project, by default, it is finish to start. So you do not have to type in finish to start in the box. It knows, okay, by default, we are finished to start. So if you typed in, for example, finish to start here, as in these two, you wouldn't see any difference. Finish to start. You see there's no difference because by default, it is finish to start. So it just takes away whatever you type in and enter. It's just going to take it away because it knows by default, I am finished to start. So the last one that we haven't talked about is start to finish. Start to finish is the one that is a little bit of an anomaly. So if we have a task here and a task here, and this is task A, for example, and this is task B, the start to finish is saying, I need to start task B, if I make this the anchor point, I need to start B before I can finish A. So think about it like this. If this is the night shift guard, the night shift guard must start before the day shift guard can finish. That's really what this is saying, you know, finish. And I'll just put this in a different color so that you don't lose sight of the finish, or I beg your pardon, the start, where the arrow is originating from, to finish. This is different from, watch this, this is different from finish to start. Finish to start would be like this. But think about it. If you made this finish to start, it wouldn't be any good if you say the day shift guard finishes, and that is what drives the night shift guard's start. No, no, no. Because this guy could end up leaving. Really, this is not dependent on anything else but the night shift guy showing up. The night shift guy showing up is not dependent on the day shift guy finishing. So the way people schedule when they do shifts is really more of a start to finish, because you kind of keep this day shift guy on site. You cannot finish your shift. You cannot leave except you're relieved of your duties. So that is how this one in particular works. And that is why this one is the least commonly used relationship. If you get that question on the exam, you need to remember that start to finish is the least commonly used relationship. If they ever ask you that question, start to finish, least commonly used. The most commonly used is finish to start. Okay, that is the most commonly used. Now, with that said, we've taken a look at a few. Let's see if we can put a start to finish. You'll see why it's so temperamental. So let's put in a start to finish relationship here and see what it does. Start to finish. Very awkward looking, but that's the way it works. Okay, so you cannot finish chapter 4 until you have started chapter 4. You cannot finish testing until you've started reading, which is kind of awkward. Doesn't make sense, but in the context that I showed you a few moments ago with the day guard and the night guard, that makes a lot more sense. This makes a lot more sense. All right, so with that, we've got a couple more things to do before we are done with this aspect. And this aspect that we have to do is the duration. So let me get rid of what is on the screen and let's do the duration. So how long does it take to read chapter 1? You guys tell me, how long did it take you to read chapter 1 of the PMBOK guide? If you did read it. For me, it was too long. I can't even remember how long. Maybe a day? How long did it take you to read chapter 1 in the PMBOK guide? Or have you read? Jan said months. I'm going to go with month. Let's go with 30 days. Oh, that is a very long activity. See how, okay, let me cut it back. Let me make it 7 days. 7 days, just so we can see it on the screen. Okay, what about the chapter 1 test? That is funny. Chapter 1 test, let's say it took you 3 days. I'll just put in some random numbers so we can move along and you see how it all pans out. So this is what estimating the duration is. It's putting in the duration using expert judgment, using your team members, kind of like how I'm asking you guys, how long did it take you to do this? You know, you would need to have people on your team that have the expertise in reading the PMBOK guides and and being able to take the test and so on. So that is estimate activity durations. And the next thing, boom, you got your schedule. But guess what? There is some input from here that needs to happen. So if I randomly put in team members' names, you know, at least I know who is assigned to what. You know what I'm saying? So I need to put in some team members' names. See? And that helps me keep track of what is happening, you know, who is doing what. And based on the expertise of these folks that I'm putting in, I know how long the activities will take because I know these folks are capable. They get it done quicker than anyone else, yada, yada. You see, so as you put in names, you know, you orchestrate this whole thing. There is an input from estimate activity resources. You need to remember that. That is a very important step. Okay. So the resource names, the resource assignments, it happens outside of schedule, but you also need to factor that in to your grand scheme of, oh, you know, who's working on this? And based on their proficiency, you know how long it's going to take. So if you've got a less experienced person, this, for example, might end up taking more, or this. All right, so that's your schedule. Bear in mind that what is on this side of the screen is not this right here. That's your Gantt chart. That is not a schedule. It is an interpretation of the schedule, not the schedule. What is the schedule? The schedule is what we have on the left-hand side without the names. Okay? Now, when we talk about the schedule model is everything that is used to illustrate the schedule, including this. And then the interpretations of the schedule model are things like your milestone charts, which we'll take a look at later, your Gantt chart, which you can see here. All right, so when you hear schedule model, we're talking about the different components, the resource names, everything that makes up the different interpretations you're seeing. So this is an interpretation of the schedule model. You see, the Gantt chart or the milestone chart, so on and so forth. All right, beyond that, I would advise that you read the specific definitions in the PMBOK guide because that will help you familiarize yourself with PMBOK guide terms. So similar to yesterday, my friends, I would like you at this point to take out your PMBOK guide and go to figure 6-1, go through it really quick, and I am going to give you a quiz that is closed book in the next 2 minutes. So open up your page in the PMBOK guide to 6-1. And if someone can be as kind to chat into us, 6-1 is what page in the PMBOK guide? While I crack mine open on my iPad. Thank you very much. I think someone's come to our rescue here. The page in question is 174. Thank you, my friends. Oh dear, a lot of people are already on it. All right, take a look at page 174, okay? And if you get done taking a look at page 174 within 2 minutes, then, wow, you must have read it in advance. But you can go on to things like the inputs, tools, techniques, and outputs table. So figure 6-3. Maybe spy on that, page 179. And I'll just type in the pages that you can glance at after because I really want you to do well on this. So go to page 179, page 183. I'll type them in, don't worry. Page 187, 195. And 205 and which one? 205 and 222. 205. All right, these pages are going to help you in advance. So I'm giving you a 2-minute clock. let me be a little bit more lenient. You're going to need it. It's a very bulky set of things to deal with. So let me help you. Let me give you 3 minutes instead of 2 to go through all that stuff I typed. And here's the clock. All right, 3 minutes coming up. So off we go. Okay, so we're going to shorten the time to do these. So 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's stop. Here are the results. Very polarized. So I'm actually glad we're doing this because we are going to find a number of things out for those who are not completely familiar with this topic. Okay, so the clue or the trick, I should say, to this is to observe the origin of the arrow. Where is the arrow coming from? The arrow is coming from one part and going to another. That's the trick. You need to observe where the arrow is coming from and where it is going to. So let us look really carefully. Where is the arrow originating from? That's the question. It's originating from either the start or from the finish. And it's going to either the start of another activity or the finish of another activity. You see that? So this is coming from the finish of an activity and going to the finish of another activity. For that reason, we look at the answer to this, believe it or not, as being a finish to finish. Now, I'm not sure how many of you have actually paid close attention to this before, but this is a very good eye-opener because majority of folks got this one incorrect. All right, so this is time well spent. Spending time doing this is gonna pay us off big time in the long run. Okay, so that is finish to finish. Do you have any questions about that? Questions that I can answer for you? Or are we good? Does it make sense now? So you need to look for where the arrow originates from. That's the clue. Okay, let's go to the next one. Here we go. Here's your poll. Where is the arrow starting from and where is it going to? That is the trick. Look carefully before you choose. 1 minute. 3, 2, and 1. Let us end the poll. Here are the results. So it seems like we've done some self-correction. That's good. So if you take a look at where the arrow originates from, where the blunt end originates from, you see that? It starts from here and the arrow ends here. So where the arrow goes is the last part. This is the start, as you can see, going to the finish. And it seems like majority of us got this one correct, which is good. Always look for the origination of the arrow. That is the trick. This is going to help you in some questions if you get those kind of network diagram questions that are kind of bendy and tricky. Oh, I've already shown you the answer to that one. Well, my bad. I revealed the answer to one of them. So let me go to the next one. Okay. All right, here we are with our next one. And let me relaunch the poll. And off we go. All right. Well, it seems like we all did well on this one, and I really wanted everyone to get their little vote in, and that is correct. It seems like we've done our self-correction. Awesome. It is indeed C. I'll be asking you a few more of these as we go along, but for now, we'll go into some of the meat of what we have for today. But very well done. I'm glad that you were able to self-correct, and now you know what those arrows are all about whenever you see them. All right, so we've talked about the 6 processes. For those of you who are just coming, we've talked about the 6 processes. I gave an overview of how it looks in Microsoft Project. So plan schedule management is developing the schedule management plan. This one, you really need to remember there are 3 biggies. You've got your activity list, you've got activity attributes, and you've got milestone list, all of them coming from defined activities. This is big, very important. I'm going to be showing you the data flows for where these 3 things go as inputs within schedule management. Sequence activities, you need to remember that the project schedule network diagram is your output. This is what you use to illustrate the activities sequence. And this is how you find the critical path and all that other stuff. Afterwards, we do our duration estimates. That is what we get out. We also get out our basis of estimates. Next, we do develop schedule. That's where we compile all the information together. We get a boatload of things from here. I would like you to pay close attention to some of the things we get out of develop schedule that are very unique. So let's go to 6.5 and let's take a look at what we get out. So first of all, let me put them in order, in some order. outside of whatever they've given us here. But the schedule baseline, oh, good, they put that first. That is big. Your schedule baseline is going to be used to measure. You see what I'm saying? It is the basis that you're going to use to measure your performance, to measure your schedule performance. So the schedule baseline is big. And then if you're looking at page 205, in the outputs, the next thing listed is your living, breathing schedule. There's a difference between the schedule baseline, which you are not allowed to change except with permission, versus your project schedule, which is your living, breathing schedule that you are always updating. Note, I didn't say changing, but you're always updating it to reflect actuals. You are not changing the baseline, you are changing the schedule in terms of the updates. So the baseline, the schedule baseline, you do not change that at all. But when we talk about modifying the project schedule, that is your living, breathing schedule with actuals. So there's a difference between your baseline, which management says, these are the dates that we want to see all these things delivered, versus, oh, well, we tried, we weren't able to do it on this date. This is the date we did it. Those are actuals. So there's a difference between those two. All right, the third thing here is your schedule data. So all the information in your schedule, like I showed you, all that information about the start dates, the finish dates, the duration, all that stuff, that is your schedule data. All right, so follow me along. I want us to just read very quickly together. Schedule data, in the words of the PMI, output of developed schedule. And you got to fly over all of the boatload of things to 6.5.3.3, page 220. And it says the schedule data for the project schedule model is the collection of information for describing and controlling the schedule. The schedule data at a minimum. This is worth highlighting, my friends. Page 220, line 2. The schedule data includes at a minimum the schedule milestones, schedule activities, activity attributes, and documentation of all identified assumptions and constraints. The amount of additional data varies by application area. Frequently supplied as support in detail includes, but is not limited to, resource requirements by time period, often in the form of a resource histogram, alternative schedules such as best case, worst case, not resource leveled, or resource leveled, or with or without imposed dates, and applied schedule reserves. Schedule data could also include such items as resource histograms, cash flow projections, order and delivery schedules, or other relevant information. So the summary of it, folks, is depending on the application area, your scheduled data could be a lot more robust than those first 3 bullets. But at a minimum, you need to know that resource histograms could be looked at as part of this data, as well as all those other things mentioned, okay? So when it comes to develop schedule, there is some minutia that you need to pay attention to as you study. And those big ticket items, the first 4, let's cover this one as well. Project calendars. So project calendars, it says here on page 220, it identifies working days and shifts that are available for schedule activities. It distinguishes time periods in days or parts of days that are available to complete schedule activities. Basically, it shows you working time and non-working time within which you can complete the project. That's the summary. So these ones that I've mentioned here, folks, very important. Schedule baseline, project schedule, schedule data, project calendars. You got to know them well. Now, something else to realize from this talk is change requests, which do not typically appear a lot in planning, can be seen. It says, Modifications to the project or to the project scope or project schedule may result in change requests to the scope baseline and other components of the project management plan. Schedule change requests are processed for review and disposition through performing grade change control. Preventive actions may include recommended changes to eliminate or reduce the probability of negative schedule variances. So what are they trying to say? They're trying to tell you that you may end up having to modify scope if when everything comes together in the schedule, you realize, oh, let's cut this off. This is going to take us out too far. For whatever reason, you might decide to add or reduce scope based on what you're scheduling. You see, all of the knowledge areas are interconnected, and working on one area could unravel stuff that needs to be corrected in other areas. That's the summary of it all. So develop schedule is a very important process. This is where it all comes together, and this is where you need to look out for possible changes as well as those 4 unique things: schedule baseline, project schedule, project calendars, and schedule data. Last but not least, we've got control schedule. And without going into MS Project to illustrate this, you've got a tracker where you can track % complete in MS Project. You've also got a tracker where you can track the dates that you actually finish the activity, which are your actual start and finish dates. So your actual start shows when you actually started, your actual finish shows when you actually finished. And those do not touch the baseline at all. So the idea here is control schedule is preventing delays, thinking ahead, monitoring progress is big, giving status as far as this is where the project is heading, and the big one from here that does not appear anywhere else is called schedule forecast. Let's take a quick read here under control schedule, just so you keep an eye on schedule forecast. It's an output of control schedule, and it goes to monitor and control project work for inclusion in those work performance reports. So let's read quick on 228. It says, schedule updates are forecasts of estimates or predictions of conditions and events in the project's future based on information and knowledge available at the time of the forecast. Forecasts are updated and reissued based on work performance information provided as the project is executed. The information is based on the project's past performance and expected future performance based on corrective or preventive actions. This can include earned value performance indicators as well as schedule reserve information that could impact the project in the future. So this is a very important one. It's one of those unique, totally unique. I mean, it does not appear anywhere else as an output. And then you see it as an input going into monitor and control project work to get those work performance reports. All right, so those are your 6 processes of scheduling. Now, it will be unfair of me not to give you the opportunity to have some fun with a quiz all on your own. I know you would like that. So why don't we get a browser ready? I'm going to give you a URL in the chat for you to type into your browser and for you to have just a quick 6 minutes of fun. All right, here is the link, and it also has a password, and the password is PMP Dawn. All right, so if you head on down to that link that I just typed in, it will take you to a page that is going to rely on Flash. If you do not have Flash enabled, you need to enable Flash. And when you do, it will take you over here. The password comes first, PMP done, email address, and login. Uh-oh, what have I done wrong? Did I type in the password incorrectly? PMP done. There we go. Oh, I want something else. Uh-oh. Seems like my password is incorrect. Let me try another one. Okay. So the password is not what I typed in. It is PMP Big Win. PMP BIGWIN. PMP Big Win. Oh, try that. PMP Big Win. And if you type in PMP Big Win, it should take you in. So let's try that again. Password PMP Big Win. It wants the password first and then your email. And in we go. 5 questions in 6 minutes. Okay. So I'm going to start the timer. I'll give you 7 minutes to check your mistakes. Okay. And here we go. 7-minute timer. Have fun with it. All right. It seems like our time is up. So, those of you who have been taking the quiz, I am curious to know how well you performed. So, if you will allow me to hop on down to where all the action was, I will take a quick peek and see how well we all did. Let's hope this works. Does it work or does it not? Don't worry, I'm not going to tell anyone what you got. I'm just going to take a quick peek and see how well we all performed. 5 questions, and you can take this again at some point. Very good. I see a lot of folks did well. Nice. Very good. Okay. Some folks haven't finished though. Some folks are still on it. But nonetheless, well done. Those of you who were able to finish. Let's see who else. Okay, fair enough. Oh, well, it's a learning opportunity, Willanda. That's how I always look at these things. It's always a fun learning opportunity. I always tell people find the gaps before the PMI does. Okay, so it's all good. That's the name of the game. It's to find the gaps before the PMI does. So well done. Any attempt is a great attempt because remember, the main goal is to find what we don't know. So if we are finding stuff that we don't know, it's a win. It is a win. Believe me, it is a win. So just so you know, Greg, everyone's questions were shuffled a little bit. So if you want me to take a look at your one, I can do so. If you send me an email with the kind of question layout, I will take a look at it and get back to you. But everybody had questions shuffled. So I think in all, there are about 15 or 12 or 15 questions, and they're shuffled each time you take them. So, but you did well, Greg. I saw your score. So well done. Well done. Okay. If you shoot me an email with the details, I'll take a closer look. Okay. And this is for you to go in and play with it again, before the end of the course, just go in and play with it. Those of you on the LMS, this is it's embedded in some quiz somewhere. So a lot of times I just extract questions and give them to you. So if you've been on our LMS long enough, it is possible you have seen these. It is possible. All right. Well, let's shift gears here. Like I said, don't worry, folks. You can take this again and again and again. Okay, as many times as you want to within this period of the course. Okay, so I wouldn't keep taking it right now because you will lose traction. Like where we're going right now, we're trying to get to some particular topics. So let's move back to where we are. Schedule management. So let me give you some on-the-spot quizzing. I know you've done the quiz on the quasi LMS on the web page. That's fine, but I am going to ask you a few quick questions. What is the major output of sequence activities? Major output of sequence activities. Just chat it into me. If you can do it privately, that'll be nice. I don't think you can. Can you? No, you can't chat privately. Okay, never mind. Just chat it in public. What do you get out of sequence activities? I'll take the first answer I get. Give me the full one, Willanda. Full name. Full name. Thank you, Christian. That's what I'm looking for. Project schedule network diagram. All right. Tell me the 4 unique things, pretty unique, that you get out of developed schedule. Go. What do you get out of developed schedule that is pretty unique? 4 things. What are they? Schedule data. Thank you, Jan. That's 1. What are the other 3? Schedule baseline. Thank you, Donna. Rolanda typed in project calendar. That's correct. Schedule data, schedule baseline, project schedule. I think we got them all, right? Is there one that we didn't get, or did we get them all? We got them all. Good. Schedule baseline, project schedule, project calendar, and I think someone typed in schedule data. Fantastic. All right, tell me the unique thing you get out of control schedule. Control schedule. What is that unique one that goes to? Thank you, Rolanda. Forecasts, get it right. You're almost there. Schedule forecast. Thank you. Awesome. Very, very good. All right. Tell me the unique 3 that comes out of define activities one more time. What are the unique 3 from define activities? 3 unique things. Activity list. Good. Jan. Milestone list. And what's the last one? Thank you, Willanda. Activity attributes. Yeah, the BOEs only come from where you have those estimating things going on. So if you don't have any estimating stuff going on, you don't have any of those. Very good. All right. I'm going to ask you a few questions, but you have to listen very carefully because I'm going to describe something or just say a key word, and I want you in a poll to choose what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's go. The longest path, but the shortest time in a network diagram. The longest path, but the shortest time. The longest path, but the shortest time. What am I talking about? Okay, longest path, shortest time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Awesome, guys. You guys know this stuff very well. You got it right. The answer is critical path. Let us relaunch the poll. Here's your next one. Deliberately delaying an activity. Deliberately delaying an activity. Deliberately delaying an activity. Twenty more seconds. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much. Here are the results. You see, majority of folks chose option B. If you go to page 709, my friends, and you read along with me, it says lag, the amount of time whereby a successor activity will be delayed with respect to a predecessor activity. So when you deliberately delay the building of the framework because you're allowing time for concrete to cure, that is an example of a lag. It is a deliberate delay. Like when you use the term, oh, stop lagging behind. That is really what lag is all about. It's deliberately delaying an activity for one reason or another. All right. So the answer to that is B. If you go to page 192, just to clarify it again, you can see they've got an example here of a lag. So you can see write draft and edit draft. That is an example of lagging edit draft by 15 days. Okay. Now, what they have has since been corrected in the PMBOK guide because you show lag with a plus. So what you have in the PMBOK guide should actually look more like this. It should look more like this. And you should have start to start plus 15, because it's the plus 15 that is the lag. Okay, so the PMI have since corrected this, write draft and edit draft. This has since been corrected in the PMBOK guide. Okay, so start to start relationship with a 15-day lag. Okay, now if it was lead, you can see an example of lead on the other side of the image, complete punch list and landscape building lot. So in that example, they're showing you that you don't have to wait to get done with the punch list before you start the landscaping. And for that, they have shown you the relationship that looks something like this. And this was punch list, and this was landscape. And you can see they've got a finish to start relationship, but it's got what? It's got 2 weeks of lead. So it would be shown as a finish to start relationship with -2 weeks. Okay. If you want to put your FS -2 weeks, finish to start with 2 weeks of lead. All right. So lead time, let's read it. It says a lead is the amount of time, page 192, the amount of time a successor activity can be advanced with respect to a predecessor activity. Okay. For example, on a project to construct a new office building, the landscaping could be scheduled to start 2 weeks prior to the scheduled punch list completion. Right, my friends. So let's move on to the next one. The next one I have for you is this. This one gets a little bit tricky, so I need to type in some words so that I don't lose anyone. Here we go. The amount of time you can delay, wait for me to finish. I know some of you already know this, an activity without affecting the project's end date or successor activities start date. All right, and let us relaunch. Go. There are the results, my friends. You aced this one. Bravo. This is talking about the slack, I beg your pardon. This is the amount of time you can delay an activity without affecting the project's end date or successor activity's start date. Now, let's play a little game here. Let us have a subset called free slack, total slack, and C, project slack. Okay, so option D is off the table. I am being very nice in giving you just 3. Since you did so well in this one, I want us to dig a little bit deeper. So the next question I have for you is not going to be from here. Forget all this. It's not from here. It is from these guys. Okay, so I want you to choose an option for what I'm going to describe. The amount of time you can delay the start of the project without affecting the customer required due date. And here is your poll. Let's go. Five, four, three, two, and one. Thank you very much. Let us take a look at what we've got, my friends. Here we go. Here are the results. Highly polarized towards C. That is because the answer to this, my friends, is not in the PMBOK guide, but this is talked about in our course. And now you get the pleasure of knowing that project slack is the amount of time you can delay the start of the project without affecting the customer required due date. That is classic project slack. Okay. So if you didn't know that before, you might want to just write this down quick or take a screenshot, whatever you need to do. But if you're working on a project, just think about it. You got the start of the project and you've got the end of the project. And then you've got the customer required due date. The customer required due date, let's say this is on the 31st of the month. The end of the project is on the 15th of the month. We started on the 1st of the month, for example, okay? You need to look at getting this done within this time frame, but the customer actually does not want the deliverable until the 31st. So you've got 31 minus 15. You've got 16 days of project slack. In other words, if you delayed this out 16 days, you would still be able to hit the target, because we're looking at the amount of time between this and this. Okay, you would still be able to get that done if you started on the 16th. You would be able to end on the 31st still. So that is how you calculate it. The way you calculate project slack is equal to the customer required due date minus the project end date. Okay, just keep that in mind. You never know where you may bump into that one. Okay, not in the PMBOK guide, but definitely worthy of notice. Okay, so let's go on to our next one, and I'll just tell you what it is while I get rid of all of this. So the next one is the amount of time I can delay an activity without affecting the end date of the project. Let me type it out so that everyone's clear. The amount of time you can delay an activity without affecting the end date of the project. So now we've got one taken off the table. This is going to be very, very easy for you. Let me erase this so there's no confusion, and let me relaunch. There we go. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Get your vote in. All right, seems like we're not going to have the whole vote, but let's end it. Let's share the results. Heavily polarized, well, not heavily, actually narrowly polarized in favor of B, total slack. So why don't we head on down to page 725 and take a look there, my friends. It says, under total float, it says, the amount of time that a scheduled activity can be delayed or extended from its early start date without delaying the project finish date or violating a schedule constraint. So these tiny little bitty definitions in the glossary, you want to spend one full day combing through them and applying them to your projects. And if there's any doubt about anything, you know what to do. You need to stop and you need to ask your friend Phil, hey, I came across this in the glossary. It doesn't make sense to me. What are they really saying? All right. So the answer to that question is total slack. All right. Do you have any questions? These slacks, you need to keep the slack straight. Keep the slack. It sounds like a play on words, but you got to keep the slacks straight. There are 3 slacks and you got to keep them all straight. All right. So let us go to our final one, which is going to be a no-brainer. You're all going to get this one right, I hope. The amount of time you can delay an activity or task without delaying any of its successor activities. And here is your poll. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And the poll, the answer, as you can see, is heavily polarized towards option A. That's because free slack is indeed the amount of time you can delay an activity or task without delaying any of its successor activities. Now, let's read how the PMI have framed this under free slack. You know, I define them in slightly different language, but at the end of the day, it is the same thing. So free slack, or free float, some people call it float, on page 707. Just so you know, slack and float are used interchangeably, okay? So free float, the amount of time that a scheduled activity can be delayed without delaying the early start date of any successor. See that? Or violating a schedule constraint. You always need to remember violating a schedule constraint because on the question, they may ask it in a different way. But schedule constraint is in both of the definitions because the PMI always want you to think about those as well. Like a constraint that says you must deliver the goods on this date. If there is an imposed deadline, that is a constraint you need to think about, okay? So my friends, free slack, the amount of time you can delay an activity without delaying its successor, Total slack, the amount of time you can delay an activity without affecting the end date of the project. And project slack, the amount of time you can delay the start of a project, the whole project, without affecting the customer required due date. So there's three, and you need to keep them straight. Okay? Low-hanging fruit if they come up on the exam. Let us move on to another topic. I'm going to ask you another question in this same respect. And the first question I'm going to ask you, just to kick the tires, is you are ensuring that resources are allocated in equal amounts throughout the project. Now, this could be tricky, so I'm going to make sure you guys see some text in the next few seconds. So spreading, I'll just quote, spreading out resource allocation over the project within a schedule's slack or float. All right, here we go. Think about it. And here is the poll. Okay, 10 seconds. Very well done. Okay, if I end the poll right here, I will share the results. And taking a look at the results, a lot of folks chose A. Some folks chose C. But the correct answer to this, I want you to self-correct by checking it yourself in the PMBOK guide. Spreading out a resource allocation over the project within a scheduled slack or float. Okay, so that is key. I want you to go look up all of them, and I want you to try this again because majority of folks botched it. Let's do it again. Check it in the PMBOK guide. Open up your guide to the definitions in chapter 6. Refire. 1 minute. Thank you. One person has got it right. 2 people have got it right. Thank you. 3 people have got it right. I think those 3 people may have read page 211. 4 people just got it right. Read page 211, and you got 2 bullets there. You got to read both to know which one is best. 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 There's some key words there that I want you to find. Thank you. 5 people just got it right now. 7 people. Woohoo! Come on, who's left? Come on, let's do it. Okay. Well, thank you very much for trying. Everyone who jumped in, I think we got a couple people left. But while this is going on, let me just read the key thing. Let me show you where the key thing is, all right? The key thing is on the second to the last line. You see? In other words, activities may only be delayed within their free and total float. So if you're doing resource optimization, there are 2 options. There is resource leveling and there's resource smoothing. And resource leveling well, let me not use the word smooth. Spreads out should be the right word. Resource allocation, but it does not do it with regard to the schedule, slack, or flow. It just spreads it out, whether it is going to push out your project or not. And an example of this was given in the PMBOK guide. Why don't we take a look at that example? Because I know you guys must have seen this. If you look at page 212, you can see resource leveling, what it does. A project that should have 2 days in duration, it has now spread it out to 3 days. So it did not have any consideration for the slack or float or whatever. It said, no, I'm just going to spread out the resources, which means instead of Phil working 40 hours this week, or working 80 hours, let me say this week, I'm going to spread out the other 40 hours into the many weeks ahead. I don't care. However it's filled up, as long as Phil doesn't work more than 40 hours, I'm just going to do that. That's what leveling does. Smoothing says, wait a minute, we do not want to touch the critical path. But if there are pockets where we have some slack or float, then we will fill in Phil's extra 40 hours into some of those days. But we are not going to violate the critical path as it currently is. That is the difference between the slack and float consideration in resource smoothing versus resource leveling, which has no regard for the critical path, okay? So if you read the language here, resource leveling, it says, a technique in which start and finish dates are adjusted based on resource constraints with the goal of balancing the demand for resources with the available supply. Then it says, if you go to the third from the last, it says, resource leveling can often cause the original critical path to change. See that? Available float is used for leveling resources. Consequently, the critical path through the project schedule may change. So while resource leveling uses any float, it does not adjust the resources with consideration for that. So it doesn't adjust it within the schedule, slack, or float. It could use slack or float, but it will just wipe out anything else. So it will use up the slack or float and it will extend the critical path. So it's just like a monster consuming everything in its path. This is the difference between leveling and smoothing. Leveling has no regard. It uses the float, but it does not spread it out within the float. It spreads it out beyond the float. You know, it will consume the float and anything else. But resource smoothing will not spread out those resources beyond the float. Okay, so in this case, when you take a look at these options, my friends, This would have been correct, but it's not the best option. This is not the best option or correct, you see, because the word within a schedule, slack, or float means there's a barrier. You cannot go outside of this. And the best one in that respect would not be optimization, it would not be leveling, it would be smoothing. So this just shows you, folks, that you got to know your definitions, pinpoint precise, because this is what PMI do on exams. They are very pinpoint precise. And if you miss that within, float, or slack, you could get it wrong. Okay. Is that clear, or do you have any queries that I can answer or clarify? Because this is one of the major topics people have questions about. See? To go a step further, to give you some further clarity, my friends, this is what you need to be thinking about. You need to be thinking about various resources allocated on a project. This is the 40-hour mark. Okay? And you got all of this extra that I'm shading. What are you going to do with all of this extra hours? So you got resource A, B, C, D. These are their histograms. Resource C is the worst. What are you going to do with all of this? If you are really in a bid to spread out the resource usage, what are you going to do with all of this? You see, this either has to go into pockets where there's slack or float only, which is smoothing, or you're going to say, look, let's spread out the entire schedule. I don't care if it's going to be plus 50 days because we can't kill people having them work 90 hours, 80 hours. So let's just spread it out. And instead of the schedule being like this, the schedule is now like this, because all of this is the smoothing, well, I beg your pardon, is the leveling that you've done, okay? The smoothing that you do will still be within these limits. You see, smoothing will not push it out, but leveling, like I said, it consumes everything and more, and it pushes it out, okay? So you probably want to read that a little bit more, get familiar with the differences and the pinpoint precise definitions. All right. Now, with that said, my friends, we have one more that people often talk about, and I'm going to give you a quick quiz about this one as well. So the language here is paying money to expedite a part needed for the project. All right, here we go. Paying money to expedite a part needed for the project. What is it? Paying to expedite a part. All right, 3, 2, and 1. Thank you very much. Here are your results, my friends. So we're very polarized equally between crashing, fast tracking. But let's take a look at page 215. It says, under crashing, a technique used to shorten the schedule duration for the least incremental cost by adding resources. Examples of crashing include approving overtime, bringing in additional resources, or paying to expedite delivery to activities on the critical path. So in light of that, the best answer, my friends, is crashing. The auxiliary answer, which is a catch-all, would have been schedule compression, but it is not pinpoint precise enough. So on the PMP exam, when you get questions that are pinpoint precise, paying money to expedite a part, expedite delivery, you know that it's crashing. If they talk about overtime, you're paying overtime, crashing. You see what I'm saying? You got to know these. So the answer to this was crashing. All right. So let me give you the second one. The second one for you is, hang on. I'm going to give it to you in a language that will be very, very easy. Overlapping activities that should be done in sequence. And here you go. All right, my friends, 5, 4, 3, 2, just in time. Thank you very much. Let us share the poll. All right, so again, this is one of those where we can see the answer heavily polarized towards fast tracking, and that is because it is the best option. Now, fast tracking is a type of schedule compression, but when you get a pinpoint precise definition, you got to choose what is best. So if you take a look at what they say about fast tracking is really just overlapping what should have been done in parallel. Well, let's go to the PMBOK guide and read the pinpoint precise definition of it. Page 215. It says, a schedule compression technique in which activities or phases normally done in sequence are performed in parallel for at least a portion of their duration. So even if you had this overlapping just like that, we're still talking about fast tracking because it should have been done like this, suppose, if that's A and B and it should have been done like that, and then you make it partially overlapping, we're talking about fast tracking, which is a type of schedule compression. So if fast tracking wasn't there, schedule compression would have been the better, answer out of everything else. But since fast tracking is there, you got to choose what is best. This is how the PMI works. And this, my friends, is what makes it very difficult for many on the exam. What makes it hard is choosing between two correct options to get the best. All right. So I wanted you to have fun with these because a lot of students complain about these terms. All right. Now, with that said, we are going to move into taking a look at our map of the world of schedule management. And I'm going to give you the opportunity to ask questions regarding that table, figure 6-1. I think we got a question here. That's not fun, says Jason. All right, let's take a look at our table. Tell me, what would you like us to talk about in finer detail? If there anything, because these quizzes were kind of built with the pain points that some folks raised in mind. Now, critical path is still coming. I've got some on those. So we can shift gears to the critical path if you wish. I know I've given you guys quite an intense first 1 hour plus. So do you guys need a little break? Get your senses together. You've been looking at a lot of numbers. Okay, I'll give you a break soon. Let me know, do you have anything that you would like me to explain? Because I'll just take it quickly and explain it for 1 minute and move to the next one. Questions? All right. Well, if there are no questions, oh, Agile release planning, says Jason, and Kevin said estimating. Very good. So let me talk about estimating very casually for you, Kevin. On the PMP exam, you got to know the pinpoint precise definitions. Let me give you a very quick exercise just to make it a bit of a learning experience. So if we make analogous A, we make parametric B, we make 3-point C, and we make bottom-up D, like that. And if I said, wait for it, I've got a poll coming. So if I gave you a definition that said, using historical information as a basis for estimating, using historical information as a basis for estimating, what would the best option be to you guys? Using historical information as a basis, as the only basis. The only basis is historical information. Very good. I see 6 people have killed it. Very good. Using historical information and nothing else as a basis. Your boss told you, hey, that project was 10 million, so this one's going to be 10 million as well. Very good. You guys killed this one. Awesome. I love it. You got it all right. That is analogous. Classic analogous is only historical information. Now, if I amp it up and I say you are using historical information coupled with an algorithm to estimate. You're using historical information coupled with an algorithm to estimate. Historical information and an algorithm. Let's even say mathematical formula or equation. You're using historical information coupled with an algorithm or a formula or equation to estimate. Very good. 7 people just killed that one. Algorithm. The moment you hear algorithm, there should be an alarm bell going off in your head. Because there is one and only one that we use for that. Okay? Okay. So you're using an algorithm and historical information. When we talk about historical information plus algorithm, it can only be your friendly neighborhood parametric estimating. Now let's get it straight. When we talk about algorithm, you could say, oh, but I'm using an algorithm for something else. No, that is the best answer. Parametric. The hallmarks of parametric estimating, my friends, is that algorithm. Let's read it. It says on page 200, parametric estimating is an estimating technique in which an algorithm is used to calculate cost or duration based on historical data and project parameters. So that would have been the best option, okay? So the best option here would have been B, parametric. It's exactly as PMI give it to you. Now, if you read bottom up, let's go to bottom up just to set the record straight. It says on page 202, Bottom-up estimating is a method of estimating project duration or cost by aggregating the estimates of the lower level components of the WBS. When an activity's duration cannot be estimated with a reasonable degree of confidence, the work activity is decomposed into more detail. The detailed durations are estimated. The estimates are then aggregated to a total quantity for each of the projects, each of the activities' duration. Activities may or may not have dependencies between them. All right, that's all talk. But you kind of get the idea. Algorithm and historical information, that is parametric, classic. All right, let's play with one more. This is going to be a dead giveaway. I don't know if there's any point doing it, but you are estimating using 3 points of pessimistic, optimistic, and most likely. That's a dead giveaway. You're using 3 points, pessimistic, optimistic, and most likely. Very good. Everyone aced this one. I think we got a great question in a few seconds ago. So you guys did great. The answer to that one is indeed C, 3 point. Very good. Now, let me throw in one more. Let me give you an A and a B. A is beta distribution, and B is triangular distribution. All right. So I've eliminated C and D for you. Your boss has sent you to work on a brand new project with new technology, never been done before. Okay, which of these would you use? Beta or triangular? Brand new project, never been done before. No one in the company has a clue about this technology. Which one would you use? Never been done before, brand new technology. Everyone's clueless. Even the best engineers are like, what are we gonna do? What would you use? All right. 10 seconds. All right, 3, 2, 1. Ending the poll. Here are the results. Equally polarized. So here's the deal, my friends. If you think about beta, and let me just make the screen a little bit more clear by introducing the whiteboard. If you think about beta, the beta formula, it is 4 MOPS, as one of my students says, 4M plus O plus P divided by 6. This is known as a weighted average. It is weighted in favor of the most likely because there is historical information to back up why this is looked at as the most likely estimate. Now, if you look at the triangular is really just a straight estimate because you do not have anything to leverage in terms of experience because you ain't been there before. So if you haven't been there in the past, you cannot weigh the most likely estimate more than the others. They're all expert judgment. They're all based on a guess or an expert's judgment for what is happening based on what they feel in their gut. Beta is a little bit different. We give a little bit more weight, actually 4 times more weight, compared to the optimistic and the pessimistic, because this is based on history. Where you do not have the history to make the most likely weighted more than the others, you got to go with triangular. So this is where you have unknowns that you've never encountered. See? So triangular is used for new technology. All right? Keep that in mind, because that could be a trick question. You know, you typically get the question that would say, you've been called upon to do this, this, this. It's new. It's never been done before. No one's ever been to these regions. You don't know what you're up against. It's going to be triangular. Now, if it says you're working on a project that you have a lot of information, historical information on from similar past projects, then it would be beta. All right. Keep that in mind. These are things that will definitely help you on that test. All right, so let's go back to our little PowerPoint here. All right, and I think that's it. That's it. We've talked about bottom up. Bottom up is going to the granular levels and adding them all up to the top. You can break a task down to even lower levels of subtasks and roll those up, or you could choose just to estimate a work package by going down to the multiple activity levels and rolling up all of those activities into the work package. That is also looked at as bottom up. All right. So I'm hoping that helps a little bit, Kevin. Does that help you some to clarify a few things? The key words you want to hone in on are that algorithm and historical information. And that takes us to a similar question, which I'll just attack right now since we're in that zone. So Jan says trend analysis, parametric, analogous, all use historical information. That's true, but bear in mind trend analysis, when we talk about trends, we're looking for trends on our current project. You're most welcome, Kevin. So on your current project, you have a little bit of history, but you're not going into the history from past projects per se. The trend analysis you're doing is, where is our project headed? That is the trend you're looking for. Whereas parametric and analogous go into old projects that happen even before yours, you know. Now you could say, oh, well, we're looking into phases and stuff that happened in the past. Yeah, that's for the most part also correct. But trend analysis is used predominantly to predict the future based on actuals, you see? So a lot of times we're using trend analysis. We're not in planning anymore. We are actually within the executing and monitoring and controlling realms. And that's why it is used for forecasting as well. You want to forecast the future based on the trend. So variance and trend analysis are usually talked about together. Variance analysis looking for variances. And then you could use trend analysis to further extend, oh, well, look at this variance. It has been growing over time. So our cost variance has been increasing monthly, you know, and it's getting worse type of thing. All right. Now, when it comes to your estimating, if you're really talking about estimating, parametric estimating, the key word is the algorithm. If it doesn't have the word algorithm, don't fall for it. Or formula or mathematical equation. Okay. So that's how to distinguish between them. Usually a trend analysis question will put you smack dab into your project is going badly. You're doing this. At that point, it cannot be parametric or analogous, except you are reviewing a change request and trying to use these to correct the project. But it's usually much clearer than muddying all three of them together. Okay. Krishnan, did what we just did help with analogous? The key words in analogous? Historical information. I'm hoping that helps. Okay. So Jan says, also, do you have to submit a change request before performing resource optimization? That's a very good question. So if you are adjusting the duration and leveling is spreading out your project all over the place and you end up having more schedule, then definitely you need permission before doing that. If you are just doing stuff within the Slack or Float, depending on the organization's policy, you may still need to inform a sponsor or a senior manager. So there's no hard and fast rule of, if you're doing this, should you ask for permission or not? You know, some organizations, and customers, they are very, very particular about anything being different from what was in the baseline. So for example, if in the baseline you said you were going to get done on the 31st on a particular task, not even the project, a particular task, some customers will pull their hair out over you deviating from that task. For example, an environmental engineering project I worked on, I will withhold the name of the company and the customer to protect the innocent, and the name of the team member. But we remember getting a call, and when I say we, my team and I, not in Praizion, a different company, but the customer said, why didn't person X do the groundwater experiment that they were supposed to have done on this day? I don't see it completed in the schedule. So that, you know, it was a bit of a case explaining why this team member didn't do his experiment. The customer wasn't happy. It wasn't going to affect the critical path, but it was different from what we promised. Because now this individual who was reporting to his superiors now had to say, oh yeah, that was on the milestones to get done this week, but we didn't get it done this week. Even though it wasn't going to throw off the entire project, but you know, so it depends on a project by project basis. Okay, very good questions, my friends. And we had one more question here from Jason. So why don't we talk about Agile release planning? You see, Agile release planning is mentioned in developing the schedule because it's an alternate way that you can develop a schedule in the world of Agile. So in the world of Agile, you know, Agile encompasses many different flavors, Scrum being one. But in the world of Agile, you could use release planning to schedule. So the summary of it is you've got a product vision, and you could break your product vision on an IT project into releases. You could say, okay, this release is going to have all of these features and functions, and we're going to spread this out into various iterations under each release. So you see, a release is really a collection of these iterations, or sprints, if you will. So you want to plan out what your releases will look like. And then after planning out what your releases will look like at that high level, we then go into the detail of each release plan. See? So we go into the different iterations. Iteration 0, iteration 1, iteration 2, and so on, all the way to iteration N, whatever that looks like. It's all planned out, and the team is aware of how many iterations are coming down the pike. And within those iterations, we have what we call features. So the iteration plans are going to schedule feature development. So within those iteration plans, we're going to bring to the surface these user stories. What is a user story? A user story is, think of it like a feature described from a user perspective. For example, as a doctor, I want a medical device that will help me check my patient's blood pressure, temperature, etc. all at once, so that I don't have to hassle them too many times. Or as a patient, I want an electronic device that will remind me to take my medication at certain irregular times. Or I want a device that will help convey to my doctor when I have not taken my meds, so that they would remind me. Anything, you know. So that's what your user story is usually like. It's as a whatever your role is, and this might be helpful to some of you that haven't seen this before. So it is really in the form of as a whatever you are, as a doctor, as a patient, I would like whatever the feature is, okay, feature, and then the so that. This is how these are written, all right? So in the world of Agile, we have a number of these, which some of you already know. We have a number of these user stories, And these reside in something we call a product backlog, like many of them in a product backlog. And then we have to whittle these down. Imagine you had 300 of these. The question is, what are we going to program first? Well, you need to take a section of these and put them into a smaller backlog, which we call a sprint backlog. Okay. Now, if you haven't read your Agile practice guide, I would like you to, so that you get familiar with some of this jargon and terminology. Okay. So your sprint backlog is going to have all of the user stories that you are working on under each iteration. So your iterations are going to have all of these features, you know, the user stories. And then for each user story, you got to plan the tasks. You know, you got to plan out, okay, in order to get this user story, we're going to code this, code that, code the other. So you begin to prioritize your features, and then you begin to go into the details of how long each one would take. Or you could use story points to say, okay, that is 50 points, that is 20 points. And the whole talk about story points is a little bit outside of this, but I would say if you have not read the Agile Practice Guide, you should. And if you do not have an overall idea of Agile or Scrum, you should. So those of you on the LMS, so Greg, Charles, Willanda, all of you on the LMS, all you know who you are. I'm hoping that you're actually watching those videos. Those of you that are on a different system, make sure you really understand Agile, the nuts and bolts of it, just in case you encounter any of this lingo on the exam, okay? To help you out, I'm going to show you very quickly a place where you can get some information about this babble, so to speak. You want to go to the Agile Alliance glossary, and it's free, which is really kind of them. And I'm going to type in a link for you guys, but let me share with you what I'm looking at. So right here, this is the glossary, and you know, it doesn't hurt to just browse it and take a look. Okay, just see what's out there. Okay, there's some really great stuff out there, and it defines in alphabetical order. So if I wanted to see product backlog, I'd go to P and I'd look for product. There we go, product backlog. A product backlog is a list of the new features, changes to existing features, bug fixes, so on and so forth. Or if I wanted to look for sprint backlog, go up here, letter S, sprint backlog, there it is. You see, so all of this stuff, you can very rapidly get the definitions, but you need to know what you're looking for in order for this to be useful, you know, instead of just, you know, going through at random. Let's take a look at the letter R just to tie this up. So if we go to the letter R, let's see if they have it in here. Release planning, are you here or not? Oh, hang on, let me go back. Release planning, release. Nope, no release planning here. Frequent releases, no release planning. You know, but release planning, as coined in the PMBOK guide, is really just planning out a bunch of releases. That's really what it is. So while we don't find it in the glossary, don't mean, you know, it's bad. What else? Let's take a look at, there's something else called the Scrum Guide. So the Scrum Guide, I'll give you the link to this. Scrum Guide. So Ken and Jeff, the inventors of Scrum, they have been very kind to put out something similar to what I just told you about. And this guides you on understanding the definitions of Scrum a lot better. Hey, you're welcome. There we go. There's the one for Scrum. And you can actually download it. Okay, so let me see if release planning is here. Nope. So obviously the PMI have taken their stand in calling it release planning. You know, sprint planning is a term used here, you know, but it's a general term. It's just that it's not in any of these pieces of documentation. But again, that's the PMI. You just got to know their own lingo and roll with it. Okay. You are most welcome, Donna. All right, my friends. Well, it's very important I give you a little break. I know our time is pretty max. It's unbelievable that we've just consumed a ton of time. So we got kind of 30 seconds-ish left, or 30 minutes, I'm sorry, ish left. But before we finish this, is it all right if I gave you maybe just a 3-4 minute break? I think you need it. Can I just start the clock so you just get a little bit of respite from this, you know, chapter 6? I think you need it because I'm feeling some people are, you know, they got a bit of fatigue and, you know, just processing the information. So let's give it, let me give you a 5 minute. How about that? Just take a drink of water. I'm actually going to go out and just clear my head for a bit because this stuff, trust me, it heats up your head, really does. So here is the 5 minute timer. I'm going to duck out for a few seconds, maybe get a drink of water, and let's come back in 5 minutes and then we'll wrap it up. I'll show you network diagrams and then the pain will stop. Okay. Network diagrams is where we'll end today. So we'll end with a bang and everyone will be happy. All right. See you in 5 minutes. All right. Welcome back to class. I hope you guys are finding value from this run through that we are having. We've been spending roughly 2 to 2.5 hours combing through each knowledge area without even reading the PMBOK guide like zombies. We've actually been going through it in a rather detailed fashion. Okay. So it was actually 7 to 9:30 in the actual invite thing. And I put in the extra 30 minutes just to add some more value to you guys. I mean, I'd have liked to jump off ASAP, but I want to add value to you guys. So for the most part, it is 7 to 9:30. And the last 30 minutes was meant to be a kind of cushion just in case we were not able to effectively hit everything. Okay. But to round up for tonight, there are two things I want to cover. Okay. The first one I want to cover is just a basic network diagram, just to illustrate the importance of the network diagrams. And the second thing is the data flow diagram for schedule management. Okay. So I'm going to show you that really quickly. All right. If you don't get it all, don't worry. I'm just going to call out stuff that you need to pay more attention to. And when this class is done, you guys will have access to the on-demand version for 30 days, okay? For 1 month, all right? So don't worry about not being able to write it all down. Okay, let's go. The develop project management plan process, as always, fuels the planning process group processes, with the exception of develop project management plan itself. So for that reason, plan schedule management gives us the project management plan. I beg your pardon. Plan schedule management uses the project management plan as an input to it. And in addition, we have the project management plan go into every process, every single process in schedule management uses the project management plan. You see this? Define activities, project management plan. Sequence activities, project management plan. Estimate activity durations, project management plan. You see? Why? Because the schedule management plan is part of the project management plan when all is said and done. So without showing it in an explicit arrow, you need to remember that your schedule management plan is implied through the outputs from other
I don't know what happened there. Am I back?
Is it back? Oh, when did the sound go? Was it a long time ago? Okay, so let me start. I'll start again. Thank you for letting me know. I was not taking a look at the chat, but Krishnan, the difference between the burn down chart and trend analysis, they actually do not have very much in common. Your burn down chart is really used to see the burn down of work, whereas your trend analysis shows you any trends that you're looking for. But we'll talk about that towards the end, okay? So let's backtrack. Sorry about that. I didn't realize I had lost sound. So let me backtrack and start again. So I was saying the developed project management plan process fuels all of the processes in scheduling. So plan schedule management, define activities, sequence activities, estimate activity durations. They all use the project management plan because it contains the schedule management plan, okay? Now, create WBS. I want to bring this to the surface, all right? I'm not just showing you stuff that is the umbrella grouped ITTOs. I want to show you some minutia that's important. So you need to think that even though the project management plan is listed, yes, we know that goes into define activities, but one of the major ingredients of the project management plan is the scope baseline. Without the scope baseline, you cannot really define the activities theoretically because the activities are being defined off of the WBS work packages. So you're using the work packages to define the activities, theoretically speaking. I know in the real world, some people don't even have a scope baseline or a WBS. But in the world of the PMI, you need to remember that, oh, even though they've said project management plan goes in, the reason why this is mentioned as a component is because this contains the work packages that you are going to decompose into activities. That is so important to remember. So I know the PMI, they just have project management plan. You need to pay attention to this bullet. All right, enough said. Let's move on so we finish quick. All right, estimate activity resources. If you remember, I told you that there's some interchange here, okay? But we're going to come back to estimate activity resources. I want to point out to you that these three outputs, now you won't really see that one very well, but it's the activity list, activity attributes, and the milestone list. Those ones, they are extremely important because they fuel a lot of the processes of schedule management. Without your activity list, what are you sequencing? Without your milestone list, it's like, what are you sequencing? You see? So when you see these outputs, I'm going to show you again. When you see activity list, activity attributes, and milestone list, you need to remember that these are inputs to many places. Okay, and I know it's a little bit cramped, you can't see too well, but activity list, activity attributes, and milestone list, you got to remember that they all go in here to estimate activity durations, all right? So just imagine a line going through them into estimate activity durations. I know it's swept under the carpet of project documents, but trust me, this is very important for you to observe where these three go, okay? Especially in relation to their own knowledge area, okay? So looking a little bit further, you can see I've got activity attributes and the activity list going into estimate activity resources. You see that? That is an important relationship. Now, I know estimate activity resources is outside of scheduling, but the interaction is very important between these knowledge areas, resource management and scheduling. There's a lot of interchange. All right. So still in this vein, The activity list, activity attributes, and milestone list, they go to sequence activities, and the activity list and activity attributes are also taking a trip to develop schedule. You got to remember that. Okay, so I'm not showing you all of the interchange, but I'm showing you that the activity list and activity attributes, don't forget those, okay, because they go to a number of places. Project schedule network diagrams comes from sequence activities, and it goes into develop schedule. The resource breakdown structure and resource requirements, like I told you guys, we need these right here in order to effectively estimate our durations. So the resource breakdown structure and resource requirements, they come from estimate activity resources, and they go into estimate activity durations. There's a lot of interchange between those ones. All right. Resource requirements, again, is going to go to develop schedule. So now you see the relevance of this. There's a lot of interchange between these areas. Your activity duration estimates is going to go to develop schedule. Remember, this is where everything comes together. Develop schedule is a melting pot of many things. And this diagram is just showing you a lot of things lead to develop schedule, a lot of things, okay? The project schedule and schedule data will come out, and they'll go to control schedule under the umbrella of these so-called project documents. But you need to keep your eye on these because they are from scheduling going to scheduling. So anything coming from a knowledge area and going to other places in the knowledge area, take note of those. So like we looked at scope yesterday, we looked at the requirements traceability matrix. Where is it coming from? But where is it going within scope? So these relationships at a minimum are going to help you further, okay? I know they're swept under the carpet of project documents, but we need to pay attention to them. All right. So the project management plan also, of course, goes to control schedule. Let's not forget that. And then work performance information comes from control schedule and goes to monitor and control project work. And so does what? What else comes from control schedule and goes to monitor and control project work? I'm extending your thinking here, but help me. If you remember, Jan says forecast, right on the money, Jan. Thank you very much. And that is true. You're going to see schedule forecasts. That comes from control schedule, goes to monitor and control project work, and work performance data, as you can see here, goes to control schedule. A lot of interrelationship, my friends, but it's stuff that you need to pay attention to, okay? So outside the scope of this course, you know, when you take a look at these videos, I want you to watch all this stuff again. Monitor and control project work gives you work performance reports. One more relationship to round this off is the relationship between your project schedule and your plan resource management process. Your project schedule goes into plan resource management. It is going to tell you what resources you need. And that's why it is important here, okay? A lot of interactivity, but this is stuff you need to see and go through again and again so it sticks. All right, our time is almost up. In fact, we've only got 7 minutes left, but we're going to get a little bit indulgent in our network diagrams. So why don't we take a look at a few cheap and easy network diagrams? I'm going to show you one that is so easy, you'll wonder why on earth I even included it here. So let's take a look at this very basic network diagram. This is very basic, it's very easy. What is the critical path? Chat into me, you already know this. This is namby-pamby stuff. What is the critical path? Thank you very much. I got someone say it's 14. I got another person say it's 14. 14, 14, 14, 14. This is a very simple one. Someone says it's AD. Maribel got the answer, the first person to get it right. Maribel is correct. It is 15, my friends. It's 15. So I don't know if you're using the 0 method or the 1 method, but whatever you're using, you need to add 6 plus 1 plus 8. Okay? So beware. It may look simple, but that doesn't mean that it is the answer everyone's typing in. So it's going to be A, C, D, 15. 6 plus 1 plus 8. Okay? Beware of these type of network diagrams because it may look so easy, but that's not the answer. Okay, now let's do something similar. Let's look at another one here. This is another easy one. This one now has 4 tasks. What is the critical path? Take a good look at it. All right, chat into me when you get the answer. Thank you very much. Everyone types in 15. That is correct. There are 2 critical paths. It's either A, B, D, or it's A, C, D. We call this an alternate critical path. An alternate critical path just means, oh, you got 2. So it's that one or that one. That's the language. Alternate critical path. Now, if you had, let's say, a third path that was, let's say, 14, the language to describe that one would be near critical path. So there's some language out there in scheduling space, near critical path, alternate critical path, and all that jargon. So just, might want to write that down, keep it in your back pocket. You never know when you need it. Now, before we round up, folks, I really wish we had more time, but let us very rapidly solve this network diagram using the 0 method, okay? If you use the 1 method, that's fine. Bring out a piece of paper. We're gonna go hard until we get to the top of the hour, okay? So until we get to the 1/2 hour, we got 3 minutes. We can solve it, but I need you guys to tell me what comes next. So we're gonna solve that. Here it is on a blank slate. So you guys tell me, what should I put into the early start of box A? I'm going to wait for you guys to tell me what to do. You guys are going to help me. What do I put in the early start? Thank you, Greg, 0. What do I put in the early finish of A? So you know the rule. You start at 0. Greg says it's 1. Very good. All right. What do I put in B, the early start of B? Think Willanda says 1. Greg says 1. Good. What do I put here into the early finish of B? Thank you. Greg says 10. That's how to do it. What do I put into F? Early start of F. 1. Thank you. What do I put into the early finish of F? Thank you. I put a 4. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Willanda. Thank you, Greg. Awesome. What do I put into box D, the early start of box D? A 1, says Greg. What do I put into the early finish of D? An 8, thank you. What do I put into the early start of E? Thank you, Yolanda. Greg says put in the 8. What do I put into the early finish? Thank you, Yolanda. 14. Thank you very much. What do I put into C? The early start of C. Thank you, Donna. A 10. Thank you, Yolanda. Thank you, Greg. What do I put into the early finish of C? 15, says Greg. Awesome. Now we get to the point of reckoning. What goes into the early start of G? You've got E with an early finish of 14, C with an early finish of 15, and F with an early finish of 4. What do we put in there? I think I see the answer. Someone says put in a 15. Greg and pretty much everyone. Krishnan as well. All right. Thank you, guys. So in that regard, I am going to put in 15, as you guys have said. And what goes into the early finish? Did I see someone say 17? You are correct. Put in the 17. That is your forward pass, my friends. Forward pass using the 0. Okay? All right, let's do our backward pass. What goes into the late finish for G? 17. What goes into the late start for G? Thank you, 15. And then what goes here into C? I saw 15, good. What goes into the late start for C? 10, thank you, Yolanda, thank you, Greg. Thank you, Jan, awesome. All right, let's do E. What goes into the late finish for E? 15, good. What goes into the late start for E? Thank you, Greg, 9. What goes into the late finish for F? 15, says Greg. What goes into the late start? Thank you, Jan. 12, says Greg. Okay. What goes into the late start for B? A 10. Thank you. What goes into the late start? A 1. Very good. What goes into late finish for D? A 9. What about the late start? Late start for D2. Thank you very much. And now on the backward pass, you've got a 12, you've got a 1, you got a 2. The rule says always choose the what? What is the rule on the backward pass? Always choose the what number? The lowest, says Jan. Very good. Lowest, says Greg. Okay. And the lowest number you guys choose is, drumroll, is 1. Thank you very much. And what is here as the late start for A? It is, late start for A is a 0. Oh, I put it in. I was just circling it. All right, you guys have done great. Now tell me, what is, watch this, tread carefully. What is the free slack of task E? Free slack of task E. What is it? Oh, that was quick. Okay. Thank you very much. You guys are correct. The free slack of E is the early start of the successor minus the early finish of the task in question. Okay. So you're going to say early start of successor, which is G, minus the early finish of the task E, and you get 15 minus 14. This minus this, which is 1. Okay. I don't want to abuse your time any further, folks, but I hope you forgive me for taking you a little bit over. I don't want to continue going on because I know some of you have been at it all day. You need to jump off. So I want to say a big thank you to you for jumping on here. My major goal was to really hit those definitions. A lot of people do not read. Okay. That's what I wanted to do. But at this point, I'm going to continue on for a few more minutes with those who can remain. But for those who need to jump off, thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to continue in solving 1 or 2 more little things here and there. You're free to stay around, but I know you need to jump off, some of you. So thank you very much. You'll see it in the recording, all right? You'll catch the recording, all right? So thank you very much. Have a lovely night. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, all right? So bye for now. And those of you who can remain, let us stop the network diagram for now. I want to show you one more thing that is still in the line of these network diagrams, and it could be important towards your test. So I'm going to just hold off on the network diagram for now. I'm going to ask you a few they're kind of minor questions, but nonetheless, it is a concept that you should know for your exam to some degree. All right. So I'm going to show you one simple finish to start relationship. I'm going to ask you, what is the duration of project AB, given that you have an FS -2, whatever that means? And here is your poll. We'll just do one of these. So here's the relaunch of the poll. Can you guys tell me what is the duration based on what you got here? It's real quick. We'll just do this one and then we'll hop off for good. Except you got further question. Oh yeah, Krishnan had a question, so I have to answer that. All right, we got 2 chats in. Let's give it a few more seconds. All right. Okay, 3, 2, and 1. Let's end the poll. Here are the results. And it's polarized towards D. That's because D is the answer, okay? D is the answer. How do you get it? The trick is this. So FS -2 is lead. So whenever you see lead, it means it's going to be shorter than the addition of these two. 6 plus 12 is 18. Minus the 2, you get a 16. Okay, so that is why the answer is 16. Very good attempt. But I just wanted you to be a little bit more aware of these kinds of questions, you know, because you could have a network diagram with this kind of relationship. You need to know what to do with a -2, for example. Okay. All right. Oh yeah, that is not talked about very commonly in PMI world, or I should say PMP test world, but it is something to be aware of. A lot of people don't go over that. All right. Well, let me end the recording because I know a lot of folks just had to, it is a heavy topic, so I understand a lot of folks had to jump off, but let me stop the recording. Those of you who stay till the end, thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, at this point, if there are questions, we'll take the questions and those won't be in the recording. Okay. Bye for now.